Hey, what is going on, guys? It's DK. Back at you with another video here for a final look breakdown of the Week 15 NFL main slate on Draftkings. Before I get into the video, if you guys are new to the channel, my name's DK. I make daily videos and live stream for NFL and NBA slates on Draftkings. I want to thank you guys again. The support has been phenomenal recently on the videos, live streams, as well as on Twitter. So thank you again. I cannot say that enough, guys. If you guys enjoy this content, would appreciate if you leave a like button on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you know when I upload videos, you know when I go live. As always, for the NFL main slate, I'll be live 1 hour before lock on my YouTube channel to go over everything, answer all your guys' questions. Also, if you guys cannot watch these videos, I do upload an Apple Podcast. The link is in the description below to the DK DFS show. But with that all out of the way, let's jump to the video. So super excited to talk about this Week 15 main slate. I think there's a lot of different ways you can go. So let's start with quarterback, guys. And at the top, there's a couple cheap quarterback plays that I actually think are more viable. Guys like Drew Brees, Hurts, maybe even a guy like Mitch Trubisky, but I think the guys at the top have enormous upside, and again, that's kind of where I've been looking. This year, I've really been spending up in quarterback basically every single slate. So Patrick Mahomes, don't have to say a ton about him, right? The floor is super high, the ceiling is super high. This game should be super high scoring. Now, especially with Drew Brees playing, that actually helps Mahomes even more. I think this one could definitely turn into a shootout. So love Mahomes if you can get to him. Lamar Jackson at 7.5 had a phenomenal game that last game against Cleveland. Went for 37 fantasy points, 124 yards in the ground. Again, the reason we're targeting Lamar is just the ground game, right? He's not going to do a ton through the air. He's missing some wide receivers too. This is a great matchup. You would assume they probably rely on his legs even more. I think Lamar firmly in play here at 7.5K in both formats. Russell Wilson's a guy I'll look elsewhere. I prefer other spend-ups. Seattle, Washington's defense has actually been pretty stout too. So if you want to get super contrarian, like the Seattle stack will be pretty low on this slate, but not where I'm looking. Kyler Murray at 7K. So got back to his kind of normal rates of rushing. He ran 13 times for 47 yards. 7.7K is a fair price point, but I'm not really going out of my way to play him either. Deshaun Watson at 6.8, I do kind of like, just because I always mention with Deshaun Watson, but Houston's defense is terrible. So they're almost always playing from behind, which is really good. He's been running the ball a bit more too. I think he is one of the better plays in the mid-range. Definitely like Deshaun Watson in both formats. I think one of the better plays. Tannehill at 6.7. Again, you kind of need the game script, right? If they're playing from ahead, it's going to be a heavy dose of Derrick Henry, who I think will be pretty popular on the slate. You do kind of need them to fall behind. I'm not super excited about that. Brady at 6.6 against Atlanta, I think is fine. Again, he's been up and down this season, but does possess upside. You got three receivers you can look to with Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin. So I think Brady is actually solid there in the mid-range. Below that, there's not a ton in this next tier of quarterbacks. And then we get to Drew Brees. So looking like he's going to start. And Drew Brees below 6K against Kansas City in a game you would think they're probably playing from behind. I actually do like Drew Brees. Now, negative with Drew Brees is we haven't seen him since week 10, and they will still have plays with Taysom Hill involved. When they get down in the red zone sometimes, Taysom Hill will come in a quarterback, which, does make Drew Brees, I guess, a little risky. But again, below 6K against Kansas City, I think he's one of the better value plays in the slate. I think Jalen Hurts is fine too at 5.9. I think he will be somewhat popular. Again, he had over 100 yards. That's kind of what you're targeting him for, right? Is that rushing ability. Kind of the same thing with Lamar Jackson, right? He's still below 6K, so I think Hurts is firmly in play for value. And then lastly, Mitch Trubisky at 5.5K. He's been pretty solid. Yes. 21, 14, 24 fantasy points last 3 games. The matchup's out here against Minnesota. So I think Trubisky is also somebody you can look to for value. But below that, I don't think I get to anyone else. I mean, you can take a shot at Matt Ryan and GPPs, but that floor is super low. He's really been struggling recently. So that's kind of for quarterback, right? It's the guys at the top like Mahomes, like Lamar Jackson. I like Deshaun Watson kind of in the mid-range. And then the cheap guys like Drew Brees, like Hurts, like Trubisky. Running back, let's move on. And running back is loaded today. Or for tomorrow's slate. You're going to running back, I think, is key on this slate, getting it right. There's a lot of really good options. And you can only play 3. So Derrick Henry at the top at 9.5K. You guys know how I feel about Derrick Henry. I'm not a huge fan, but he has been breaking the slates, and that's what he does in December. He breaks the slates. This matchup's great against Detroit. The rushing attempts have been going way up, 28, 27, and 26 attempts in 3 of the last 4 games. The one downside I will say to Derrick Henry, again, is game flow dependent. So if for some reason Detroit gets off to an early lead, say that they pull ahead like 14-0 or 21-0, then Derrick Henry gets phased out. So there is that risk. Again, no involvement in the passing game, but if this game is close or they're playing from ahead, you can expect a heavy dose of Derrick Henry in a great matchup. Again, he's going to be popular. I think he's fine if you can get to him. Dalvin Cook at 9K, I'll look elsewhere. I prefer some other running backs are cheaper. Kamara at 7.4K is probably my favorite running back play on the slate. It's just too cheap with Drew Brees playing quarterback. Right? The reason Kamara has not had great games recently is because Taysom Hill was playing quarterback. They just weren't throwing the ball a ton. With Drew Brees, they're going to air it out more. Again, this is a game they're probably playing from behind. So, it's weird to say, but you want, the Saints to fall behind. Because then it's just more dump-offs to Kamara. Again, Drew Brees, at his age right now, he can't really throw the ball deep a lot. So, it's a lot of dump-offs to Kamara. Yeah, Kamara is one of my favorite plays, if not my favorite play there. I just think 7.4K is just way too cheap. Love Kamara on this slate. I think Jonathan Taylor, firmly in play. One of the better options as well. 22, 13, and 20 rush attempts the last 3 games. I will mention, though, that they still will give some carries to Hines. So there is that risk. He has also had he had 2 touchdowns the last game to have a huge fantasy point game, 33 fantasy points. I think the ownership will be pretty high in him. I think you can look to him, though, in both formats because, again, the rushing attempts are going up. He's still a little bit involved in the passing game. The matchup's great. Like I said, Houston can't stop anyone. So Jonathan Taylor firmly in play as well in both formats. Robinson's a fade for me against Baltimore. I like Montgomery once again. 28, 27, 27 pass or fantasy points last 3 games. He's just getting it done. Now, the worry is, the attempts have not been great. For some reason, they're getting Cordarrelle Patterson more involved in the running game, so that does hurt Montgomery's upside a little bit. Early in the season, he was playing 100% of the snaps. Now it's 60, 70%, so that does make Montgomery a little bit risky, but I still think he's in play there at 7K. I think he will be a little bit under-owned in this one. Other running back options. So Cam Akers, mentioned him in the early look video. Gotta like him. I will just mention, though, it's McVay, so you just never know, but in back-to-back games with 21 and 29 rush attempts, you got to figure Cam Akers is going to get a heavy dose here in this match against the Jets. They should be playing from ahead. It's just, again, I will mention McVay is his coach. So, if for some reason, he misses passing or he fumbles or something, they could just go to Henderson and Malcolm Brown, and then everyone's going to tilt Cam Akers. So, there is that outside chance, but again, it's good to see that the attempts have been there. He's kind of been their bell cow back last couple games. I do like Cam Akers in both formats. Now, DeAndre Swift at 6'4", I think goes overlooked. I like him as a contrarian GPP play. He wasn't involved a ton that last game because it was his first game back from the concussion, but I would assume he probably gets more work in this one, right? The last few games before he went out, he was getting kind of bell cow work. The matchup's good against Tennessee. Again, he's involved in the passing game, so I do like Swift as a contrarian GPP play. I don't think a ton of people get to him. Ronald Jones is out, so we'll talk about Leonard Fournette. I think is one of the better value plays in the slate as well. The San Francisco backs are not super interested there. Again, McKissick, you have Gibson doubtful, but you need the game script, right? You need the game script for McKissick at 5.7. You need the negative game script. Probably will be against Seattle, but you never know. So I can't go there in cash. You can look to him in GPPs, and when they do fall behind, we see some big games here from McKissick. So in play, but more of a GPP option. I think Drake is fine at 5.5. Again, they're just giving him a ton of carries. He's been getting a little bit more involved in the passing game recently. I think he's a decent option if you need someone kind of in that range. The Patriots running backs, Damian Harris is out, so Sony Michel will probably be the early down back, but I think there's better value options, to be honest. And then it's Leonard Fournette, right? So no Ronald Jones. They said Fournette is prepped to start. And a 4.5K for a starting running back, especially against Atlanta too, that's just too cheap. For a guy also involved in the passing game, I think Leonard Fournette is one of the better value options in the slate. Definitely in play in both formats. So that's really where my interest lies for running back. Again, you can take a shot in Michelle with no Damian Harris, but I like Fournette better at a similar price. So that's really it for running back. Again, you have Henry at the top. You have Kamara, who I love at that price. I think Taylor looks pretty good. I like David Montgomery. I like Cam Akers a good amount. I like Swift as a contrarian GPP play. And then, again, with Ronald Jones out, Drake's fine in the mid-range, but with Ronald Jones out, I think Fournette does look like one of the better value plays there at 4.5K. Let's move on to wide receiver. So wide receiver at the top, Tyreek Hill. Same thing I'll say about Mahomes. There's not a lot of bad things to say other than he's expensive. So if you can get to him, no issue. Again, the upside is just through the roof on Tyreek Hill. Metcalf, the Seattle receivers, again, they're going to be low owned. I'm not really looking to them. But like I said, that Seattle stack is probably the lowest owned you'll ever get it. But I'm not going to go there for my one lineup. Ridley at 8.2. The price had come up with no Julio Jones. I think he's fine, but would have preferred if he's a little bit cheaper. Hopkins at 7.9, I think does go a little bit overlooked as well. I don't mind that pairing with Kyler Murray for a GPP setting. A.J. Brown at 7.6 has been really consistent. The matchup's great, but it's getting to the point where that price seems about right, maybe even a little overpriced. Allen Robinson 7.4. Again, the Bears, I still have interest in, like Robinson and Montgomery. Trubisky's cheap. Allen Robinson, again, great matchup. Targets are really high in him, averaging like double-digit targets a game. I think he's a nice play there at that price. Now, with the Minnesota receivers, again, if you kind of want to run a game stack, you could go like a Chicago stack and run it back with one of these receivers, or even Dalvin Cook if you want to go that way, because when they're passing, it's going to Jefferson or Thielen, right? You know that. They don't like target a ton of other guys. Kupp and Woods, I'm passing on just because I'm not super confident in the Jets scoring enough points. Again, I like Cam Akers. I feel like that's a game they're probably playing from ahead. McLaurin is underpriced after back-to-back kind of dud games. If you want to buy low on him, I think that's a nice way to go at 6.6. And then the Tampa Bay receivers in the mid-range, I like all of them. Evans, Godwin, Antonio Brown, I think are all a little bit too cheap for that matchup. And then I also like Brandon Ayuk a lot at 6.3K. He should be the number one receiver. He's just averaging a ton of targets, 10, 14, 9, and 16 targets. The matchup's great. So Ayuk does look like one of the better plays there in the mid-range. Cooks is back at 6K. I think he's fine. I think, honestly, I probably prefer the price in Chad Hansen for a little bit cheaper. I know it's weird to say, but I think Hansen is a guy that is in play for value. Marvin Jones Jr., again, him and Hawkinson, definitely in play. There's no Galladay. 12, and 8 targets from Marvin Jones Jr. They're probably playing from behind this one. So, and Stafford looking like he's going to play as well. So, Marvin Jones Jr. and Hawkinson, I do like a good amount here in the mid-range for Detroit. T.Y.'s finally come on late in the season. 6'5", 11, 7 targets, 18, 28, and 25 fantasy points the last 3 games. The matchup, like I said, Houston can't stop anyone. So I think T.Y., even with the price hike is still in play, would have liked if he's a little bit cheaper. Kiki Cutie's fine in the slot, but I would rather get to Hansen, honestly, for value. Again, mentioned Antonio Brown. I like his price at 5.4K in that matchup. Again, no Deebo Samuel. That's why Ayuk looks pretty good. We'll talk about some cheap San Francisco wide receivers here in a sec. Gage is fine at 4.7 playing out of the slot. His role doesn't change a ton with Julio out. Other options, Emmanuel Sanders. With no Michael Thomas, I think is one of the best value plays. Him, we'll talk about Traquan Smith. These Saints receivers, I'm really high on the New Orleans Saints. Again, I love Kamara, and I love the cheap receivers. And Drew Brees, I think, is a little bit underpriced. I'm liking this game stack here. Emmanuel Sanders with no Michael Thomas should be their number one guy. And they should be playing from behind this one. Really like Emmanuel Sanders there for value. Talked about Chad Hansen. I think he's definitely in play. 7 and 7 targets. Again, he's basically playing the entire game. He's playing like the Will Fuller role. Obviously not as talented as Will Fuller, but at this price, I think he's fine. And the Colts defense has been struggling recently, so I'm not super scared of the matchup. Again, Texans should be playing from behind, so I do have interest in Chad Hansen there for value. Amendola's fine out of the slot at 4.2K. 5 and 7 targets in back-to-back games. I think he's decent for value. Kendrick Bourne, again, with no Deebo Samuel, he should be the number 2 receiver. Targets should go up for him. Matchup's good. I think he's definitely in play for value. Other options at wide receiver, again, I always mention Mooney. He's still running a ton of routes. Targets, he only got targeted 2 times the last game, but he's a guy that does possess upside. I think he's still in play for value. The Miami receivers, we'll see. Let's go to Miami really quick, right? Because we have Grant and Devontae Parker questionable. Where is Miami? If they're both out, we can look to maybe a guy like Lynn Bowden, possibly Hollins for value. So we'll see. Again, that'll be something we'll talk about more on the live stream tomorrow. Other options at wide receiver. Denzel Mims is back at 3.5, but the matchup is not great there against the Rams. Michael Gallup is still in play, right? The floor is somewhat low on him, but the positives are he's going to be out there a good amount of the game. And still, targets. 8, 11, 6 targets. So, yeah, Gallup is definitely someone I'm looking to for value as well. Let's see. Other options. Again, the Saints wide receivers. So let's go to the Saints. No Michael Thomas. Really like Emmanuel Sanders. I like Traquan Smith a lot, too. At basically min price, he's going to be out the majority of the game. With Michael Thomas out there, he had 6 targets in back-to-back games. You can expect more for Traquan Smith. Really like Traquan Smith. I really like Emmanuel Sanders. I think you can play them both. Now, Deontay Harris, we'll see. He's questionable if he can't go. We'll see who ends up filling in for the Saints, whether it be a guy like Juwan Johnson or a guy like Tommy Lee Lewis. We'll see what they end up doing, who they end up activating if Deontay Harris is out. Deontay Harris plays, and he will probably be the number 3 receiver. I think he would be playable as well. Probably would feel a little bit more comfortable with Smith with Emmanuel Sanders. Other options at wide receiver, let's see. Devin Duvernay. So Baltimore is really thin. Let's go to Baltimore. The reason I'm not as excited, I guess, about Duvernay is just Baltimore just doesn't throw a ton. But no Hollywood Brown, no Boykin. So it's going to be Snead. It's going to be Duvernay. I prefer the price on Duvernay or Dez Bryant. Like min price Dez Bryant, 3.2K for Duvernay. They're fine. But like I said, Baltimore, they're just not running a ton. That's a game they're probably playing from head too. Let's see. Was there anyone else I wanted to mention here? I think that's it for wide receivers. Like the Atlanta wide receivers, they always troll me. Like, you think it's going to be Christian Blake filling in when Julio's out, and then they go to Laquan Treadwell. And they still politics. Like, I don't trust it. I just don't trust Atlanta and their cheap wide receivers, so I'm just not going to do it. If you want to take a shot in one of them, fine. But I'm not going to do it. And yeah, I think that wraps it up for wide receivers. So let's move on to tight end. Let's finish it up with tight end. Travis Kelce at the top. Same thing I'll say about Mahomes and Tyreek Hill. If you can get to him, love him. 10, 8, 12, and 10 targets. He has enormous upside. He's put up 30 fantasy points in back-to-back games. Wouldn't expect 30 again, but still, Travis Kelce is one of the safer plays at tight end. Tight end is always a weaker position, so if you have the salary to spend up and Kelce, I think that's a fine way to go. Mark Andrews at 5.5. Again, the matchup's good, but will they have to throw a ton? I don't know. Again, I like Hawkinson a good amount in the mid-range. Him and Marvin Jones Jr. It's just the targets with these guys. They should be playing fine. It's a good matchup. 7, 8, 9, 11 targets. If you want to do a little game stack here, say you're really high in Derrick Henry, which I think he will be popular. You can play Derrick Henry. You can run it back like a Lion stack, like Stafford and either Hawkinson or Marvin Jones Jr. I like that for GPPs. Again, I like Hawkinson a good amount there in the mid-range. Other options at tight end, like Logan Thomas, the price is coming up, but he's still, again, targets have been there, running a ton of routes. I think he's a decent punt play. Goddard at 3.9 is probably the only receiver slash tight end I look to for Philly. Targets are still there for him, 10, 7, 6 targets. At 3.9K, I think that looks like a decent play. Irv Smith Jr. Let's go to Minnesota here. So Rudolph's out. Irv Smith Jr. is going to be their lead tight end. He's their best pass catching tight end. I think he's a fine option. Probably gets a little bit more involved this week with no Rudolph. Below that, Jordan Reed is the 49ers pass catching tight end. Hasn't really been great, but I think he's okay if you need to punt it. Cole Kmet too, he's getting more involved in the passing game. 7 and 7 targets back-to-back games. I think he's someone you can for sure look to if you want to punt tight end. And that's really it for me for tight end. So lastly, let's finish up with defense. We'll talk about more in the live stream. But defense, there's not a lot of standout defenses. Like the Rams, if you can get to them, but you got to pay premium for them at 4.5K. The Ravens at 3.8 I think are decent, but again, you're going to have to pay premium for them. Same thing with the Dolphins. Right? The defense is at the top, yes, but you got to pay a lot to get to them. Defense is more in the mid-range. I mean, the Bears have a good defense. I think they're okay at 3.2. The Seahawks defense going up against Washington, who, again, they're missing some pieces offensively. I think that's okay. Really, in my opinion, there's not a lot of standout defenses like the Patriots going on against Miami. I mean, Miami's offense has been up and down. I don't want to play the Saints defense against Kansas City. I mean, you can look to the Vikings, right? But Washington going up against Washington's defense I like, but playing against Seattle, I guess you could still go to them. Again, Seattle's offense has been struggling a bit. Yeah, honestly, there's not a lot. Detroit defense at 2.2K, but they've really struggled. There's really, I don't know where I'm going in defense this week. It'll kind of be, defense is such a high variance position that I'm just going to go with what fits in my lineup. If I have enough salary left over, then yeah, I'm going to spend up in one of those safe defenses. But if not, I'll probably just take a shot and whatever salary I have left and hope the defense I play doesn't kill me. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for the video today, guys. So if you have been enjoying the content so far, I really appreciate it if you leave a like button on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you know when I upload videos, you know when I go live. Again, I will be live streaming 1 hour before lock on my YouTube channel to go over everything. Make sure to check out the live stream tomorrow morning, guys. Thanks again. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you in the live stream tomorrow.